Well, good evening and welcome once again to Letchworth Cable Access. I'm Kyle Adamczak, and tonight our guest is someone whose name will be familiar to regular viewers of Letchworth Cable. He's our ace cameraman, Joe LaGeorgia. How are you, Joe?
Doing good, Kyle. How you doing?
Fine, and we're glad to have you here because you're about to embark on a life adventure.
That's right.
But before we get to that, where did you grow up? Here in Perry?
Yeah, pretty much here in Perry all my life. I lived in Warsaw for a very short period of time, like not even you couldn't even really call it a significant period of time. But we moved to Perry, so I just call myself a
So
Perry
when
resident.
did you move to Perry? How old were you when you moved to Perry?
About 3, 4.
So you don't even remember the move, probably.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So you went right through Perry School, and
Yep, elementary, middle, and high school before they got merged.
what's your earliest school memory?
Hmm.
Just what pops into mind of elementary school?
Nothing much. I remember my teacher, my second grade teacher, Miss Fahey. She was really nice.
Yeah, you liked her.
Oh yeah, shout out to Miss Fahey. I love you.
So what made her special?
Oh, she was just a very sweet lady. She was always very patient and very kind, which, dealing with little brats like us, it takes a lot of practice
Yes.
and being able to withhold yourself. So, yeah, she was a blessing.
So what subjects did you enjoy studying in school?
Lunch and recess. Those were two of my
Yes.
favorites,
So
but
you aced those.
yeah.
What did you get the B's in?
I got a B in history. I mean,
Yeah.
if I actually had to pick a real scholastic topic, it'd be
Uh,
history. I always liked
yeah.
history. My history teachers were always cool too. So,
Now, what is there a particular era of history you like or a discipline?
I'm a big fan. I'm a big Civil War buff. I like the
Yeah.
Civil War, reading about it. Got DVDs and stuff, and yeah, it's really interesting. I like it.
Who are some of the significant players in the Civil War that you find interesting?
Oh, you're not gonna believe this. I always liked reading about General Burnside.
Yes, Ambrose Burnside.
Yeah, the originator of the sideburn. He had the big facial hair.
Yes, yes. So why Ambrose Burnside?
No, just because I guess he was quite a character back in the Civil War. He was a
Yeah.
little more eccentric than the other
Eccentric,
generals.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what battles was he involved in, or what was his role?
Couldn't really tell you. I just know that he had funny facial hair.
Okay. Okay. Now, were you involved in school activities?
Not really. Towards the end of high school, I was in the debate club. Technically, I didn't really do much debating. No, I spent more of my time doing stuff with the Boy Scouts.
So when did you become involved in scouting?
I joined Cub Scouts at a very young age, back when I was still in elementary school. I joined up as a tiger and went all the way up through it, and then joined the Boy Scouts when I got old enough.
So you were a Tiger Scout, Cub Scout?
Yep.
How does it work? Tiger, Cub?
It goes tiger, wolf, bear, we blow 1, we blow 2, and then you graduate, you get your arrow of light, and you become a scout.
And then you became an Eagle Scout.
Yep, after a lot of years, a lot of merit badges, and a lot of hard work, became an Eagle
Well,
Scout.
tell us about the process of that. What did you have to do?
There's this, to earn your Eagle Award, you have to earn a certain number of badges, and a certain kinds of badges, like you had to get cooking and wilderness survival and a bunch and environmental science badges that are specific that you have to get your Eagle. And you have to do this all before you turn 18. Once you turn 18, they turn you away from the door unless you get a waiver.
Oh,
And then once you get all your badges, you have to do something called an Eagle Project, which is basically when you do a community-related project that improves the community, at which point it gets judged by an Eagle board, and if they approve of your project, you do it. And when you do a project, if they find your work satisfactory and they find the project satisfactory, you earn your Eagle.
so what was your community project?
There's a cemetery up in Perry Center called Prospect Hill. They needed a new driveway. They needed some new gravel laid down for their driveway because it was getting all pitted and rough, so I laid that down. And also there were a bunch of trees that had really low hanging branches that were covering up the headstones so people couldn't see them. So we went through and basically bulldozed those so people could see the trees. And people could see the graves.
So you did this by yourself?
Oh no, it was myself, and also I had my troop with me and some very nice volunteers.
So, but to earn the Eagle Scout for this project, you had to originate it and or organize it, supervise it?
I had to originate it, I had to organize it, I had to get donors to get the tools, to get the gravel, I basically had to delegate everything, and then including delegating what people do what jobs.
So how many Eagle Scouts were there in your high school class?
One,
That was you.
that was me.
So that's kind of a rarity nowadays.
Yeah, it's very rare, especially nowadays because scouting isn't as popular as it used to be with sports and people living their own lives. And, just becoming a scout is rare in itself, but becoming an Eagle Scout is even rarer. So
Well, would you recommend somebody watching, a young boy, to become a scout?
I would highly recommend anybody who wants to achieve an award that's greater than themselves. I would highly recommend getting your Eagle Award because not only is it an award that you can keep for yourself for the rest of your life, it's an honor. You become a part of an honorary society that only 1 in 100 scouts ever become a part of, and even fewer people who were, obviously, if you were never a scout, you'd never get it, and then people who actually are scouts, very few of them even get their Eagle, so it's like an honorary society, and people know that if you're an Eagle Scout, it means you have leadership qualities, and you have just good qualities of a human being that many others don't have. So it really is an honor to be considered an Eagle Scout.
Well, before you can get to that point, you have to join the Scouts to start with.
That's right.
And what is there at the beginning of a Scout hitch or joining the Scouts for a young boy? What is there? What is the appeal, do you think, or what do they get out of it? Why would a kid want to join?
Same reason why any kid would want to do anything: action, adventure.
Yeah.
And I think Scouts can deliver on that.
Yeah.
In between the campouts and the high adventure hikes, and being able to go to places that you may have never gone if you weren't in scouting, like visiting the Grand Canyon or hiking up a mountain. Scouting will allow you to do that. Your action and your adventure.
So what are some of your memorable campouts or hikes, whatever that you've been on?
Well, see, that's the funny thing about scouting is that the miserable times tend to actually be the most fun.
Yes, and what would one of those be?
I remember a few years ago we did a spring camporee. The scouting organization does these things called camporees, where basically instead of your troop just going out by itself on a camp out, they have a Boy Scout camp, and then they invite all the troops from around to come and spend a weekend there and camp out. And during the spring, they have something called the spring camporee.
Yeah.
And we got there, and 5 minutes into it, it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained. It basically rained all Saturday, all Saturday night, and then into Sunday it was still raining. By the time we left and we're driving home, it was still raining and it was cold, but we loved every minute of it because if we wanted to be warm and dry and comfortable, we would have stayed civilians. We would have stayed home.
Soggy, cold weekend.
It was a soggy, cold weekend, but it was awesome.
So where was this camporee that took place?
I believe it was at Genesee County Park.
Now, besides scouting, you've been active here at Letchworth Cable Access.
Yeah,
When did you join?
I believe it was my freshman year, if I remember correctly.
How did you first become aware of Letchworth Cable Access?
Back in middle school, I was a part of this thing called the Sting. It was a very short-lived project, but very fun project. It was basically Mr. Grierson, the art teacher, and another guy named Mr. Allen, who was like the IT guy of the school at the time. He's gone now.
Yes.
They organized a webcast show, which is, a webcast is a television show that's made for the computer. You're basically just watching on the computer, and it was called The Sting, and it was It was fun. It was mainly for like school information and stuff, but
Uh-huh.
it was a lot of fun making it. Like everybody will always tell you it's about the journey, not the destination. I mean, the actual destination was making up a webcast film that talking about school events, but it was a lot of fun making it.
So how often were these webcasts made?
We'd usually get together once or twice a week, and we'd film and hang out and
No, but how many webcasts? One a week?
about one a week, yeah.
Yeah. And what did you do as far as the production of these webcasts?
We all took turns between filming, editing, and actually anchoring the show and doing interviews. One time I did an interview with the then superintendent, Dr. Stavisky, and I messed up his name about 5 times. He's actually the one who recommended Letchworth Cable Access to me because he liked my enthusiasm working on The Sting.
So how did you come to Letchworth Cable Access?
Well, Dr. Stavisky said that you guys were looking for an intern to come down and start learning about filming, and I thought, why not? So freshman year, I went and came down here for an interview, and I talked to none other than the great Adamczak, and at the time Jeff Bennett was still working here. Jeff, if you're watching, I love you too, man. And yeah, you guys interviewed me, and I started out, and I've been here for about 6 years now.
What were your first impressions of Letchworth Cable?
I liked it. I liked the new setting. I never really been around professional filming and editing equipment and software before I came to Letchworth Cable Access. I dabbled a little bit in like camcorders and stuff and like very, amateur stuff. So I never really been around professional filmmaking equipment before I came down here, and Jeff was a great teacher.
Do you remember the first show you worked on?
I don't remember the gentleman's name. I believe he was a pastor. He came down to do a Christmas show. He was a big fan of the song Holly Holy. We played it there in the end credits.
Okay. What are some of your fond memories of working at Letchworth Cable?
Um, Back when Jeff was still working here, I was in here setting up the camera, and he was messing with the audio in the studio room, and he hit a wrong wire, and there was a big boop feedback noise, and he went ah, and I laughed for like 10 minutes after that.
Now you're about to embark on a new adventure, a life adventure. And that is what?
Recently I enlisted into the Army National Guard. I enlisted as a 31 Bravo, that's my MOS, and MOS being a military occupational specialty. It's a fancy term for job. My MOS is 31 Bravo, and it's military police.
Now you do this while you're in the middle of your college career. You are a recent graduate, aren't you?
Right, I recently graduated from Genesee Community College with a 2-year associate's degree in criminal justice and the policing concentration.
And so it was a natural extension to go into the military police, huh?
Yeah, I'd say so. It seemed natural. I had thought about joining the Army originally right out of high school, but my parents were like, listen, at least get your associate's degree first, and then you can do whatever you want. Because originally I was just going to go active duty straight out of high school, and then my parents asked me to get my associate's degree, which I did, and I thought I'd go active duty again, but I actually really looked into the GI Bill benefits, and I saw that they give you a lot of money to go to college when you're in the National Guard, so I joined the reserves.
So you think you made the right choice, or following your parents' advice?
Yeah, they tend to know best sometimes. Sometimes they know best, and this just so happened to be one of those times that they did. If they're watching, don't let it go to your heads.
Yeah. So what do you do? What do you have to do to prepare for this?
Lots and lots of exercise. You never know just how out of shape you are until someone says, do something physically strenuous. Because I thought I was in decent shape. I was never an athlete, but I wasn't a total slob either. I was just kind of in the middle of the road. And the Army has some pretty tough physical standards, which I've been trying to get myself down to.
Well, you were you were at a certain point where they took you though. So
Right. In order to enlist, you have to basically pass a medical check, and you have to meet something called the BMI, which is the height and weight standard. So for someone of a certain height, you can only be a certain weight. So for me, I'm 6'3", 75 inches tall. So my weight limit is 217 pounds. So I had to get this. I had to lose 30 pounds to get in because I was 247 when I first looked at enlisting. So yeah, losing 30 pounds was quite a journey.
what do you anticipate is going to happen?
At basic training,
Yes.
I anticipate they're going to beat us like dogs, and then they're going to beat us like dogs some more. And then once we get past that first stage, then they're really going to teach us some army, how to be a soldier.
Now, when you go into the service, do you do it with a goal in mind, or is it the luck of the draw?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, do you have you have a goal in mind to be in the military police? Is that a path that you're on right now, or is it just they decide what they're going to do with you once you're in?
No. That's the great thing about the Army is that when you enlist, you know for a fact what job you're going to have because they put it in your contract. I know for a fact that I am going to be a military policeman. So when I go to training, my training is going to be for military police, and that will be my job upon completion of training. If, however, in the future I ever decide I want to switch jobs and become something else, throwing it out there like a religious aide or infantry, not that I would ever actually switch to infantry,
Yeah.
but if I wanted to switch, you could, but they're not going to pull the switcheroo on you and say, yeah, you signed up to be military police, but you're going to be infantry. Like, you're going to be military police when you enlist.
Well, I want to thank you, Joe, for taking the time to come here and tell us about your life so far. What we're going to do is fade to black and come back after you finish boot camp. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, I would be more than willing to come back here. It's too bad you couldn't just snap your fingers and just kind of have me be done with boot camp. I wouldn't have to go through the 2 months, 2 months of back breaking training.
Well, maybe we can snap our fingers anyway. 1, 2, 3. Well, now we're back 6 months later, and
It
here we
worked.
are with Private First Class Joseph LaGeorgia.
Wow,
So,
I must say, Kyle, that the snap worked. I can't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
It's a miracle. I knew you were a miracle, man.
well, so now we have you back. You're back from the service, and you're now Private First Class, correct?
That's right. Private First Class LaGeorgia, pay grade E3.
So, what was the first day of boot camp like?
Oh,
And
first
where
day.
was it?
For my military training, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That's it's right around towards the center of the state. It's where all military police officers go to get trained. I went there for my basic training and my military police training. That's my military police is my MOS, my military occupational specialty.
MOS, Military Occupational Specialty.
That's right.
We'll ask about that, but so what was the first day like? What do you remember of it?
The first day of boot camp, for anyone at home who's ever gone on YouTube and looked up something called a shark attack, that's basically when they are, after you finish at reception, you don't actually go to basic training right off the bat. You go to some place called reception where you spend anywhere from 3 to 8 days doing medical checks, getting paperwork signed, getting your clothing issued to you, like your uniform, your all your gear, your duffel bags, and after that's done, they actually ship you off to basic training. You have all your gear on your back. For me, they issued us 2 duffel bags, a black bag and a green bag. The green bag is military, and the black bag was for personal stuff. So you had to throw all the stuff that they gave you in reception into these 2 bags. I had the green one on my back, and I had the black one on my front. Weighed about 80 pounds total. It was heavy. It was
Yeah.
heavy. They loaded us all into a cattle car. Basically, what they did was that they took these old. If you've ever been on the highway and you've seen these big long trailers where they keep cows and horses in,
Yes.
they took what the Army did, and it's genius to save money, they took these cars and these old trailers and they gutted them and they put seats in so that you could transport a ton of soldiers at once. You could probably, I don't remember exactly how many, but we could usually fit a good 70 people in there at once. They loaded us all up into the cattle cars and they drove us out to our base, basically our home base where we were going to be living for the next 5 months. And the bus doors opened up and the drill sergeants were there to greet us. The drill sergeants who we would have for the next 4.5 months of training. And it was scary, but
So you had more than one drill sergeant you worked with, or?
that's right. What happened was that after the shark attack, and we're running off the bus, we have all of our stuff, trying not to trip. We're running into formation. Drill sergeants are yelling at us, ushering at us where to go, giving us the good old knife hand. We got to meet our actual drill sergeants, and we were assigned to our platoons. Basically, in basic training, all of us together were in a company. There was about 200 or so of us, and we were all put together in a company. And that company was split up into 3 platoons, each platoon having about 70 to 75 people in them. I was in first platoon.
Yeah.
And in first platoon, I had 4 drill sergeants total. It started out with a little less than that, but over the course of 4.5 months of training, we gained a couple of drill sergeants. So originally, I think we had 2 or 3, and we ended up with 4 by the time we graduated.
So, well, there's the old cliche about the uniforms not fitting that they issue you. It looks like what you have fits. Do they measure you, or?
Essentially, what they did was in reception, where we got our OCPs. These are called OCPs, Operational Camouflage Pattern.
Yes.
It's part of the new uniform, the ACUs, the Army Combat Uniform, with the OCP pattern. What they did was that they put us all into a big hallway type room, and we were all walking down it with our duffel bags. And they had these very, very nice, very bright ladies who were standing behind the counter. And what they would do is that they would give us a good once over. They'd look at us, and just by looking at us, 90% of the time they could pretty accurately tell what our size would be. So they looked at me, and the lady looked at me. She went, "You are a large long," and she gave me my large long uniform, and it fit pretty well. And even though I lost a lot of weight at basic training, as you could probably tell, they still fit me pretty well. So.
Yeah. All right. So what was a typical day in basic training once you got into the groove? Or wasn't there a typical day?
In basic training, there is no such thing as a typical day.
Well, what's a sample day like then?
A sample day?
Or a memorable day?
Okay. We wake up at 04:30 for people who don't know. We go by military time, so instead of it going from noon, 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock,
Midnight.
it goes from 1 o'clock. It goes from 1 o'clock to 2400.
Yes, 2400's midnight.
That's right.
Okay, so you wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
We wake up at 4:30 in the morning. We have to make our bed.
Every day.
Every day, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, except for Sundays. Sundays, we usually woke up about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't any training on Sundays. We would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and we would have to be downstairs in formation with accountability of all of our soldiers and weapons by 5 o'clock in the morning.
Now, were you expected to shave and shower and everything before that
You
time?
have to make your bed, you have to change if necessary, and you'd have to shave, brush your teeth, do all that stuff in the 20 minutes time period, because you want to be done in 20 minutes so that you can be downstairs and have everything done 10 minutes early. You see, in the military, actually more in the military is 15 minutes. If you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. That's just how it works in the Army.
Yeah.
And so we always wanted to be a little early, to say the least, because when you're early, you're on time.
Yeah.
Most mornings, at least during AIT phase, which we'll talk about AIT in a minute, but during basic training, this wasn't every day. But in AIT, at least, we would do PT almost every single day. PT is physical training.
Which is what, exercises and calisthenics?
Exercise, that's right. It's we would all do it. It'd be a company thing. Our drill sergeants, or sometimes the first sergeant, would get up in front of us, we would all be together in formation, and we would start out by doing stretches in cadence, which means all together.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2. That sort of thing. That was one like the stretches that we did, sort of.
Yeah.
We didn't do that one too often. That was for example.
Yes.
But we would do that all together, and that would be our opening stretches. And then after our opening stretches were done, then we would move on to an actual physical activity. Like sometimes we'd go for a run, maybe 3-4 miles. Sometimes we would do like push-ups and sit-up drills, where we would just do push-ups and sit-ups over and over again. It really
Now,
all
would you do
depended.
this every day, or would it vary?
It would vary. In basic training, we probably did PT 3-4 times a week, but
Yeah.
during AIT, we did that almost every single day until the very end.
Okay.
And it was all necessary because in order to graduate from training, you have to pass something called a PT test, which is
What do you have to do to pass that?
you have to do, in order to pass basic training standards, you have to do, I think it was 35 push-ups, 48 sit-ups, and you have to run 2 miles in 16 minutes 36 seconds. In order to graduate AIT, you have to do 43 push-ups, 52 sit-ups, and you have to run 2 miles in 15 minutes and 53 seconds.
Now, you keep mentioning AIT. What does that stand for?
AIT stands for Advanced Individual Training.
And when did you start doing that?
I started that after we finished the basic training phase.
And how long did the basic training take?
Basic training was 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
I did something a little different. Now, the Army has over 150 jobs, I think. And
Yes.
for most of those jobs, what happens is you go somewhere for basic training, which is, 10 weeks. That's the stereotypical, everybody's seen the movies, and the drill sergeants all
Yeah.
hollering at you. We did that for about 10 weeks. And after you graduate from basic training, you come home for a little while, and then later you leave to go to AIT, Advanced Individual Training, to learn your skill, your job, your MOS, like I said earlier. So, like, say if you were a cook, you joined as a cook. You go to basic training for 10 weeks, you come home, and then a little while later, whether it be a week, a month, whatever, you go back to a different base, or maybe the same base, depending on where your job training is, and you learn how to be a cook.
Yes.
With me, I signed up for military police, which is 31 Bravo MOS, and military police is one of, I think, maybe the 6 or 7 MOSs where they do something called OSA, which stands for One Station Unit Training, which means our basic training and our AIT were together. We did the whole thing all the way through in one go. We kept the same drill sergeants for the entire time. We stayed in the same barracks for the entire time, and that was basically it. Instead of 10 weeks of basic, break, 9 weeks of AIT, it was 19 weeks all the way through.
So 19 weeks was your entire stay at boot camp?
That's right, 19 weeks. I left on July 24th, got to reception, got out of reception and went to basic training, I think, on August 1st. Graduated from basic training early October, and then there was a couple day break in between where we didn't do anything. We were just prepping to begin AIT, and then we did AIT from early October all the way to December 13th, which is when I graduated.
Now, in civilian life, you've been studying criminal justice, correct?
That's right. Before I left for basic training 2 months previous, I received my associate's degree from Genesee Community College in criminal justice.
So now you're training for military police. What was that? What did that cover? The training for military police.
Essentially, military police was, and I hope I don't offend any civilian cops at home when I say this, but it was essentially like a police academy for the Army, for Army
Yes.
police officers. That was our police academy. What they do is that they train you on the basics of how to be a military police officer in the Army, and then from there on, once you got out to your units, your National Guard, Reserve, or active duty unit, and then they continue to train and certify you from there. But AIT was like our academy, pretty much, our
Yes.
police academy, the Army's version.
So what are the differences between military police and civilian police? I mean, there are different ways of approaching the job, isn't there?
Actually, military police and civilian police is relatively the same job, but military police have different regulations they follow and they
Well, I
use
guess that's what
different
I was
lingo.
getting at.
That's right, right. Like for military police officers, they have like for civilian officers, they obey regular civilian laws. State, local, federal laws that we all know and love. But military police have to focus on something called the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and that is basically the military's laws. It's all across all five branches. The UCMJ applies, and it is like the Army's law, the military's laws. That the military has specific laws that maybe the civilian world doesn't have. So we have to focus on those while at the same time also obeying local, state, and federal laws too, because sometimes we have to cooperate with other local agencies because bases aren't their own. Within the base it's its own thing, but outside the base you have the state, the county, the town that might be near it, and you have to collaborate with them all the time.
So, what was the training like for that? What did you cover?
We covered UCMJ, laws, lingo, that sort of thing. Like, just a quick example of that. In the real world, you know what Miranda rights are.
Yes.
Miranda rights is the rights that you have to read to someone who's being taken into custody before you question them. So that, they have the right to remain silent, a lawyer. We have the same thing in the Army, but we call it by a different name. Like, we have Miranda rights, and we have a lot of different, things like that. But in the Army, I heard someone actually put it. One of my a cadre is an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, who teaches soldiers, and one of them said that the big difference between civilian law and military law is that in the civilian world you're innocent until proven guilty. In the military, you're guilty until proven innocent. And from our training, I think that's pretty accurate. But essentially, we went over UCMJ, military laws. They taught us how to shoot the M9 Beretta. The M9 Beretta is our sidearm, our pistol.
Yes.
Like in the civilian world, you see a lot of like Glocks and that sort of thing.
Yes.
We carry Berettas, and that's our service pistol. We learned about pepper spray. Actually, we call it OC spray. I could not tell you what OC stands for. It's really long and complicated, unfortunately, but you could probably look it up at home. We learned about tasers. We learned about taking people into custody. The proper method that you would handcuff someone and place them into your patrol vehicle. We drove patrol cars, so we got a feel for them. We responded to we did something called an LEX, a law enforcement exercise, during our AIT. And the LEX was we got to drive around in actual patrol cars around Fort Leonard Wood, and they would have us respond to mock training calls. Like, there's a domestic dispute going on at 12 Elm Street. We would have to go, it would be a fake domestic dispute call, and we'd have to go and we'd have to neutralize the situation. And in the military, we call it neutralizing the situation. What else? We did detainee ops, the process of transporting prisoners to and fro, giving them, searching their cells, basically containing situations if they were to ever arise within a prison, neutralizing it. Once again, I'll use that word. We love that word in military police, neutralize.
Yes.
What else? We did a active shooter training, like everybody's heard of Columbine, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're actually coming up on the 20th anniversary of that pretty soon. But basically, we learned how to deal with and neutralize an active shooter situation like Columbine, which I think was probably the most realistic training that we received in all of AIT.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a police academy.
So now you've graduated from that.
That's right.
Now, did you do any actual? So have you gone on duty actually, or is that for your next visit?
I have not. Essentially, I'm in the National Guard, so I'm home right now. And the difference is that when you're on active duty, you are a patrol officer. That's what you do. You're on duty. When you're actually performing your patrolling duties, you wear something called an MP Bizarre. It's basically a patch, and
Yes.
it would go right about here, I believe. Like, I can't remember which side because I haven't really worn it yet because I'm still fresh. But it's basically a little patch, and it says MP on it. You would wear that, and that would signify that you are an on-duty patrol officer. You're an on-duty police officer. But since I'm in the National Guard and I'm not on what is called Title 10 status, Title 10 status is what you're on when you're on active duty. I am not an active military police patrol officer, so therefore I do not wear the military police bizarre. I don't have any arresting authority in the outside civilian world being in the National Guard. But if my unit were to ever to be activated or deployed, and we would be on Title 10 status, and I was performing patrol military police duties, then I would be actively doing my duties, obviously, and I'd wear the bizarre. So, really, the bizarre is they got a lot of power in that little patch.
So when do you go back to next year, right?
Um,
When you have to do annual commitments to the National Guard, correct?
that's right. In the National Guard, the commitment is one weekend a month, which could be a Friday to a Saturday, could be a Saturday to a Sunday, could be a Friday to a Sunday. That's once a month. And then every summertime, annually, you have to perform a 2-week training period during the summertime. And you go away for 2 weeks, 14 days, and you perform training, like actual real training.
So when you go back, will you be serving as a military policeman,
Um,
or will this be training still?
this will be training still. If my unit is ever activated
That's when you.
to a state emergency or deployed overseas in a military police fashion, I will be actively a military police
So
officer.
you're ready to do that.
That's right. And that's what the whole point of training is to keep us up to date, keep us, keep us fresh, keep reminding us on what we have to do. If things ever change with the UCMJ or any sort of was like measures, like if we have to do something new with how we detain offenders, then they gotta keep us up to date with that.
So what do you think was the most rewarding aspect of your training this summer over the last 6 months?
Basically, it was just knowing that I have done something that less than 1% of the American population is even capable of doing. Knowing that I'm part of that elite group now of soldiers, I'm very proud. I've been waiting a long time to be able to wear this U.S. Army on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, I think one of my drill sergeants said it to us that out of 100% of Americans, only 1/4% ever actually take the step to join the military in any branch: Army, Navy, Air Force,
Yes.
Marines, Coast Guard. And it's something to be very proud of, knowing that I'm part of an elite group. And my dad's a veteran; he was in the National Guard for 20 years, so I just feel very proud knowing that I'm walking his footsteps as well. And a lot of people that I grew up with, I grew up around like the American Legion in my town,
Yes.
the Vietnam War, Korean War, World War II veterans. Just knowing that I'm a part of them now, and I'm wearing a uniform that is to be proud of, and that's what's worrying about it. The fact that I can be called a soldier, yeah, I wear a rank, I have a title, and when people see you walking down the street in this uniform, they look at you differently. It's something to be very proud of.
Well, now, is there anything we haven't touched upon about your last 6 months that you'd like to bring up?
Just that. If you ever decide, for people at home who are watching this, maybe they're thinking about becoming a military police officer, or joining the Army in general, I would say, basically the Army has 4 locations where they send you for basic training. I don't know about all the locations they send you for
Yes.
AIT, but there are 4 main locations for basic training. Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Relaxin' Jackson, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Fort Lost in the Woods, Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Those are the 4 main locations. All 4 of them, they get very hot during the summer, and they can get very cold during the wintertime. I got to Missouri at the end of July. It was when I got off the plane. It was 90 degrees out with 80% humidity. By the time I graduated on December 13th, I think the day I left it was 25 degrees out and there was a few inches of snow on the ground. So just be ready for the temperature extremes.
Yes.
When you get the basic training all the way through until the day you leave, you're going to wear something on your back called a camelback. It's essentially a backpack full of water. You're going to learn to love and hate that thing because you're going to love having the water when it's hot outside, and you're going to hate that you basically always have it on your back. But a lot of people don't actually know that they give you camelbacks with it.
I never heard about that before.
Yeah, I think it's a newer thing. Like even if they don't give you a camelback, they give you a canteen. But
Yeah, well, canteen I knew.
I prefer either one. I mean, I
Oh,
don't.
the camelback, how much water does that hold?
A couple quarts. I think like 2 or 3 quarts, something like
Yeah.
that. You can fill it up with a lot of water and keep it filled up because if you don't, drill sergeants they get mad at you. And
Yeah.
drill sergeants are always looking for a reason to get mad at you. And the story I want to say too for the people at home, the stories that they say about drill sergeants are true. They're scary as it is with the campaign hats on. The Smokey Bear hats just makes
Yes.
them that much more intimidating. Any excuse they can get, they'll drop you and make you do push-ups, yell at you. You have absolutely no discipline, that sort of thing. But just know that it's all part of the game. Everything from day zero to graduation day is planned out. It's a science. Like you may not think that there's a reason behind some of the things that they're doing to you.
Right.
As you're on the ground doing push-ups, saying, what the heck did I sign up for? Why am I here? Why are they yelling at us? It's planned to a science. Like it's all part of a grand master plan that nobody except the drill sergeants knows about, but it works.
Yeah.
It all works. So don't let that discourage you, and always think that if you're at basic training and you feel like quitting, just think I'm going to quit tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, you say I'm going to quit tomorrow again, and then the days just keep going by, and before you know it, you graduated. And the regular Army, especially the National Guard, is nothing like what's going to be at basic training.
Yeah.
It's a lot of misery, it's a lot of suffering, but it's a chip on your shoulder because you know that you've done something that no one else has done. I mean, how many people do you know personally who have spent the night in 40-degree weather and pouring rain, pulling a fire guard shift outside in the pouring rain, sitting behind a machine gun? Like, how many people do you know? Who can say that they've done that? I can say I've done that now.
Yeah.
It's kind of that bragging rights sort of thing, elite group, soldier, and
Well,
it's something to be. It is something to be very proud of. Like I said.
did you remember to write home to your mother?
Oh, every chance I could get, I was writing home to my mom.
Yeah.
I was always, because when you get to reception, they give you the opportunity to buy letter writing material. You can buy stamps, envelopes,
Yes.
paper. If you want to go to basic training with letter writing material, you can. They won't take it away from you. They take your phone. Like the first thing they do when you get down there is they take your phone. Hey mom, I'll write you a letter, and and your phone's gone. But they always give you the
Well,
opportunity.
you're
to
of
write
that
letters.
generation that grew up with those things. So how did you survive that?
Well, it's tough the first week or two, but then you just get used to not having it.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people with their smartphones, they're used to taking them out to
Yeah.
checking the time with. But at basic training, it is part of the uniform. You have to wear a watch at all
Right.
times, all the time. You always have to wear a watch. So like I remember when I graduated and I got my phone back, I was still checking my watch for time, and I wasn't looking at my phone for my time anymore. So you just get used to not having your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You think about all these things you're gonna do on your phone, you get it, and then you actually get it back and you don't know what to do with it. Like it's a doorway.
Yes. Well, now we'll get used to you being here in Perry.
That's right. You're gonna see me around.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in.
No problem.
Private First Class Joseph LaGeorgia.
Man, proud Letchworth Cable Access employee.
Well, as he said, this is Letchworth Cable Access. I'm Kyle Adamczak, and as always, we thank you for watching. Good night.